tries to get us down with this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Stand up.
Yep.
I saw that one too.
Good evening, everyone. I will reopen the Selectmen's meeting for Tuesday, August 19th. The board previously met in executive session, so we are now back in open session. May we begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Try to sit down. Just to let everyone know, Joshua Kuzney is our other member. Will not be in attendance this evening. He had an emergency at work and he wanted it noted for the record. We're going to take a couple things out of order. I do want to welcome our guests of honor tonight, State Senator Peter Durant, State Representative Todd Smola, and State Representative Donald Burton Jr., but I do want to read something before we begin. It's a statement from me as Town Clerk, the Chief Executive Officer for Elections in the Town of Ware. It goes without saying that elections are always of great importance, be it a state election or a town election. On August 12th, the special town election was to have taken place at the Ware Town Hall Auditorium, the place we have held elections for years. With the help of the DPW highway staff and several of my election workers, we set up voting booths, tables, chairs, and boxes that hold the tabulators well in advance of this day because of the heat and humidity and what's been going on. It's one of the summers with the highest humidity and heat waves in the country, especially for New England. On Saturday, August 8th, like I generally do prior to any election, I spent some additional time preparing paperwork and signage in my office. When I went upstairs, I noticed the curtain, which we had always been told for years not to ever touch, had now dropped. While it is a historical piece, I had concerns as to how it may have been lowered down or had it come down on its own and who may have had a hand in it. Naturally, I was disappointed, but worked around it, and on Saturday the 9th, with the help of my husband, we spent additional time setting up as much as I was able to do for this special election. We trucked behind the stage back and forth, a little bit more time and effort. All materials used by the election workers were put out, signage affixed to the walls as per usual, and this time I brought the voting list up because I thought I have a key, no one else has a key to the upstairs, and they would be secure. On the stage, I set up the work tables and materials for the precinct clerks and for myself. On Monday, when I arrived at work, however, I met with our building commissioner, the town manager, and several others, only to find that there was a real issue. The issue was not to be taken lightly, as it was determined we would have to evacuate the site as there were particles all over the tables and dust on the floor, yet to be determined. Town clerks prepare, organize, and always have an evacuation plan, as we all know, if it's downright difficult to postpone an election. In fact, my first call was to the Elections Division at the state after hearing the news of a possible evacuation, and I was told contact Town Council immediately and confer with them. After speaking with Town Council, I spoke with Lauren Goldberg as well as several other officials at KP Law several times, and hearing that yes, they could go to court, but that it is always best to move forward with the election as long as the ability to do so is available. So I started making calls. The first was to the Ware Public Schools to let them know that we would more than likely need to use my backup site when there is need for an evacuation. The next call was to the DPW to check on availability of staffing to help set up a new polling location. I also was in contact several times with Town Council during this time to discuss further, but at the same time called several of my fellow clerks in the area to seek out their assistance and to let them know I would have to borrow, beg, steal, whatever I needed to do, voting booths as well as the automark, which is the assisted voter machine, and many other minor items in order to conduct the election if we were to move forward. The towns of Barry, Hardwick, and Warren came to my assistance and said yes. The building commissioner arranged for several consultants to come in and to do testing for asbestos, possibly whatever was the dust and particles on the stage. With the help of the town manager, Stuart Beckley, we set up a meeting for 2:30 p.m. after conferring with Town Council more often than ever expected, and we planned for simply a change of location for Election Day as a precaution, as a safety measure. With the help of the Building Commissioner, Anna Marks, the DPW and Parks Department staff and department heads, and our new facilities manager, Mike Hewitt, my husband, the town manager, and executive assistant, Nicole Croto. We strategized how we would reach out to voters via robocall, the local radio stations and TV stations, signage at Town Hall, and the electronic bulletin sign in Veterans Park. My husband and Mike Hewitt went off to Warren to pick up voting booths and tabulator boxes. John Pehota and the DPW staff went to Hardwick and Barry to pick up voting booths. We all returned and met at Ware High School around 4:30 p.m. to set up as quickly and as solidly as we could possibly do to hold the election without a flaw. Town council had been informed that we were a go, but it was taking time. I returned to Town Hall at 6:30 and reprinted all of the voting lists and assembled all the ballots to be taken to the high school gym in the morning, as well as anything else we might need. With high temperatures and humidity, we still were able to be ready, and I'm thankful to all the individuals who went out of their way and spent overtime helping me. This was the first in my 23-year career, and I now know it can be done and quickly when needed. When I got home at 10, I had already missed most of the local news for the evening, but I woke up at 5 like usual and heard several times on TV 22 and 40 that the election information we had supplied to them about having to relocate was aired several times. I also know that Town Manager Stewart correctly made a call the night before, and he also made several calls prior to the opening of the polls to ensure, and we had signage to ensure that each voter who may have showed up to Town Hall would be directed directly to the gym. In fact, I was told by many that they actually liked the parking at the gym and voting at the gym much better. Once again, I'm grateful for all the help I received in order to carry out the election, and I can't thank those who helped sufficiently. We are a great team, and we do work together in a crisis. Now we await the report from the consultant as to what happened next and what the cost may or may not be. And Anna Marks, our building commissioner, stepped in tonight, and I'm just going to read what I passed out to the other board members. It's directed to the town manager, Stuart Beckley, and the select board members, and it's dated August 19th. On Monday, after routine safety checks prior to the election activities, particles were discovered in the vicinity of the drop curtain. Upon inquiry, the details of the curtain were shared. A test report analysis from 2018 deemed the curtain as contained crystal steel. With this knowledge, I consulted with the state inspector and DEP for proper guidance on the matter at hand. Every subsequent action was taken with town council guidance. Consultants were contacted and samples were collected. As of today, 2 independent tests of the products collected were negative for asbestos. This consultant is currently working on a plan for the remediation, as the curtain itself will need to be handled appropriately and in compliance with regulations. Anyway, moving on. I just wanted to get that out there for everyone to know.
Thank you.
All right? And having said that, I would like to welcome our legislators again, and thank you for taking time out of your busy lives. I know August generally is a slow month, but I hear that you're all at the State House off and on during this time anyway. So I think the board members were queried by me as to what they might have for questions. We have some questions that we put together, and I don't know if you want to start off with any kind of a message to us, or if you want to just delve right in.
Go ahead, Senator.
I was gonna say, I think we should delve into questions. It probably is easier so that we don't have to kind of bloviate about things that you may not even care about.
We never do that.
And I always like to start, as the newest member of this delegation, I always like to defer to the senior member of the delegation.
Oldest?
Well, I may be oldest.
Well,
And the most
we do
handsome.
have
I'm
a
the middle
budget
guy.
because of all of you. Thank you very much.
But I think it's easier, I mean, if we jump into questions, unless my colleagues have
Yeah,
something to
let's take
say. I think that's probably the easiest thing to do.
Please, yes.
All right. First of all, let's see. Thank you once again for attending. Is there any pending legislations for regulation of e-bikes? Locally, we are concerned with speed, safety, and helmets. We seem to be finding them everywhere. I know I saw Springfield's having major issues. I've had people tell me that they've had people with e-bikes on the sidewalk almost knock them down. I see them in and out of traffic. I know that they've become an issue on the rail trail, which is supposed to be a recreational endeavor for people. So I don't know if any of you are hearing things, or if you're seeking or knowledgeable about any pending legislation.
So I think you're right in that we're seeing a lot of problems, especially as you get into larger communities, larger cities. Although you do see them in rural communities because it's easier to use them when you have to go somewhere far. I know, I speak probably for my colleagues as well, when you go into Boston, you're constantly dodging scooters and e-bikes.
Crazy.
Everywhere. And they're up on the sidewalks, and it's making a nuisance. I think the proliferation of these bikes is only obviously making this problem worse. We did find that here in the state, we do have, currently I found 3 bills that have been filed. And basically what it does is it centers around e-bikes and how fast they go. So if they're a class 2, those bikes are under 20 miles an hour. They get treated as bikes and require helmets under 17 and all those other regulations, stay off the sidewalks, things of that nature. E-bikes that exceed 20 miles an hour are often class 3, and they're classified as motorized bicycles. They need a license, registration, and helmets for all riders. So there are regulations, and it centers around right where that mile per hour limit is. There are 3 bills that are currently within this session, Senate 2373, Senate 2347, and House 3451. They all have varying degrees. Representative Brinkley and I were speaking before this, and he's more familiar with 2737, which he said makes things worse, so we don't like that one.
What's that? Yeah. It raises the mile per hour from 20 to 28.
Right.
A lot of complaints from towns about rail trail type stuff. You can ban e-bikes from rail trail in the current law now.
That's what we're hearing.
Yeah,
And
so in the current law you
we're aware of
can.
that.
And coincidentally, I mean, just as we were driving here, I got a phone call, because I had asked the lieutenant at the state police barracks the other day. He's like, you know what, we were all kind of confused on the e-bike stuff too. So, and I'm guessing local officers as well. So he said, he called me, he said a thing came out today, and it's guidance for them and everything they can do, and towns can ban them from rail trails, they can't go on sidewalks, and that they're not supposed to, once they hit 20, if you're gonna go any faster, you have to pedal, the bike isn't supposed to, and there was a list of bikes and what is considered an e-bike, and it came out as a law enforcement bulletin, so I don't know if Sean got it, but I could send it to him.
Can you forward it to me, please?
I will,
It would
I
be
will.
helpful. But it's my understanding that we need to put up adequate signage on the rail trail specifically.
But you
We
can
can.
ban electric bicycles
Okay,
from
but
public.
it's become problematic here because someone's gonna get hurt. And I feel badly for someone who might be driving because you're supposed to have control of your car at all times, but these things whiz by, you don't even have a chance to stop.
And as Peter said, they're not supposed to be on the sidewalk.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it was my understanding too that bicycles are supposed to follow the rules of the road.
Rules of the road, same rules as cars, but we know they never do, so.
Yeah.
There's some municipalities that also have regulations that they have adopted already, and it might behoove us, we'll work with Stuart to maybe
Okay.
identify some of those towns, and
Okay.
at least so you have a roadmap and some guidelines about what other municipalities did. It may not be a one-size-fits-all thing, that's something you can look
Okay,
at.
cool.
And I think of the bills that are there, of those 3 bills, 2347 would probably be the one that it's looking to upgrade the regulations for them, requiring helmets, requiring safety equipment, things of that nature.
Okay.
I'd say that none of these right now have moved out of committee. All our bills are supposed to either move or die before the end of the year now, unless extension comes out. So we're seeing things like that, but as far as those bills go, we haven't seen any movement on them as of this time.
Okay, good to know. And then the second question was, how is the proposal for a municipal building authority similar to the school building authority progressing? And what's the likelihood of funding for such an authority?
I think all 3 of us here love these bills.
So there's been bills filed for a few terms
Yeah.
now on that, and what is it, I think it's 6 or 8 years when that bill typically takes to get passed. And there's, I don't know, there's over 10, and there's different amalgamations of it. There's some that, you know, like, the school building authority is 1% on the sales tax. So there's one to put 0.5% in sales tax for municipal buildings. There's some bills that specifically do just public safety buildings. There's some bills that take 33% of marijuana revenue that the state gets and put it in there. I think they've all, but a couple have had a hearing. So as like Peter said, now we're just waiting for them to come out of committee to see, you know, if they
And
come out favorable.
they generally sometimes have to be refiled if they're going to be moving forward, correct?
If they die this session, next session it has to be refiled. So every 2 years, if they don't pass, they
Okay.
get refiled. And most of these are refiles from
Okay.
a couple years ago.
The biggest challenge with these bills particularly is that you need the committed funding resource for it,
Right.
right? So the big two that we have in the Commonwealth are number one for schools and the second one's for libraries. But the demand just for those two categories right now
It's very
so far exceeds the resource that's available that it's like, if the Commonwealth at the end of the day isn't meeting the demand in these two categories, when you create another one for public safety, fire departments, police departments, town halls, other municipal buildings, now you're talking about figuring out where that dedicated revenue source is going to come from. Many years ago, when you went after school building projects, you got a high percentage of reimbursement from the state. So
Right.
the state picked up the majority of the cost and the town kicked in some money. That's changed now. So that percentage that a municipality has to kick in for most of those large-scale capital projects is much bigger than it used to be, and it's also the deterrent for a lot of municipalities not to pursue it. So it would be, I think it's going to be very hard to see a bill like this pass. Anything can happen, but to go to Representative Berthium's point, there's so many bills that are filed, but there's two categories of bills. So there's ones that actually create the authority and, you know, figure out where the resource is. There's also a commission to really study these, right? And I think it's probably would behoove a lot of municipalities to get behind, you know, it's the cart before the horse theory, right? Studying it and getting a really good look at, okay, what are we talking about for assets across the Commonwealth? Because there's not too many municipalities that couldn't use a few bucks for their town hall refurbishment or some sort of project. It's just the demand is very high. And I think it's more likely that we could advance maybe some sort of study language to really get a commission that looks at this and assesses the needs. Because all we would be doing now in the legislature is, if we pass the bill, is taking a wild guess at how much money you could put in there. And I don't think we could come close to anything that would even remotely address the demand for people, municipalities that are looking for capital money for buildings and things like that. So it's probably a pretty high hurdle to jump in the near future, I would say.
Okay. And then the next one was the Student Opportunity Act has been beneficial to the West School District. Do you expect the funding from this act to continue, or is there a follow-up bill that might be proposed?
I mean, right now, we don't anticipate there's going to be any change to the SOA. One thing that was consistent this year as we met as budget writers is that municipalities were coming back to us, school systems particularly, and sharing kind of the same concern about the way the formula works. Ware is a perfect example. The SOA works to Ware's advantage, but you only have to go one town over to determine that the way the current education formula works isn't necessarily a benefit to your neighbors. And that's because we've never really revamped the Chapter 70 formula for education. So we've created this formula many moons ago, and as time went on, we added things to the formula. We tweaked the formula, but we never did a comprehensive overall assessment of creating a new formula. And that's because once you make a change to it, there's winners and there's losers. Some people, you know, work out well and others don't. And Ware can sympathize with this because you're part of Pathfinder, which is a regional school district, right? And I put my former selectman's hat on, and both my colleagues were selectmen in Spencer, so we all served in the same role. One year, you know, the town of Palmer did great with its assessment. Everybody was happy. We went to town meeting and we passed it. And the next year, the assessment changed based upon enrollment and other factors, and then you weren't so happy. So I don't think we anticipate any change to SOA in the near future, but I do believe that we are going to have to take a harder look at the overall formula and figure out how it's going to better serve education overall in the Commonwealth. I just don't think that's something that you're going to see happen in the short term. So,
Todd, I've always wondered, having been on school committee for a long time, why there, because it would take a study, but why there hasn't been a study to determine what the average cost of a student in a community would be, whether it's a city and or whether it's a town. They're still a student.
Sure.
They're still, their educational needs are the same, and unless there's special education warranted, there should be some kind of a baseline to start with.
you would think that it's a one-size-fits-all approach, but when you delve deep into it, it really isn't. So we come up with, obviously, the per pupil, expenditure number
Right.
every year, right? So it's kind of the number that the Commonwealth uses in general for education from soup to nuts, whether you're from the Berkshires or you're from Cape Cod. The problem with that is intermingled with the general per pupil expenditure are a million different categories that don't get dealt with in the same way in other districts. Example for us would be something like regional school transportation, right? When you look at a regional school district that has 7 towns that are in it, Pathfinder, and again, another example. We're more rural territory, so it takes a little bit longer for our kids to get to school, right? You have to pay for more buses. That's one of the reasons that the WARE delegation were strong advocates of additional rural aid in the formula now, which helps and reaches out and brings more communities now into additional pot of resources that other cities and towns in the Commonwealth can't tap into because they don't have the same barriers that we have. We've always figured out in this region, ever since we started, one of the biggest barriers we have, whether it's education or healthcare, is transportation, right? That's why you guys do so well with the connector. Great program where, as much as it serves other towns, we're birthed the connector and has really been the champion of it. And it's a testament. We actually are using the connector next month in a microtransit briefing that's going to be brought up at the State House, and we're going to be talking about WARE, which is great. So that's something pretty impressive that you should be proud of. So to your point, Madam Chair, I think if the answer was simple, to figure that out.
Oh, I know it's not
Yeah,
simple, but there
if it was
should
a
be
once-
some baseline
yeah.
to start with.
I think outside of the per pupil expenditure that we establish now, with all these other categories that come on board, that's really where our dilemma is in figuring out a better Chapter 70 formula. So we acknowledge there's an issues there, and I'm hoping we can address them sooner than later. Really do.
There was a special commission in the Student Opportunity Act, a rural school commission, which I got put on by the minority leader.
Is
But
that still active?
No, we
I was
had
gonna
our
say, I thought that
findings
was-
last session, but
Okay.
that got held off like a couple of years because of COVID. It was
Right,
supposed to
I
be
remember
done in
that.
21 or 22.
Right.
We didn't get it done until last year, the year before, but all the findings went to the legislature, the House and the Senate, and there were a bunch of bills that came out as recommendations from the commission, so they were all filed.
Okay.
We filed them, and a couple got out of committee last year, but just so everybody, at least the upper echelon in the financial areas in the House and the Senate are cognizant of the fact that, we have issues out here.
Okay.
And one of the examples, I think, was Wisconsin. They have it was a crazy number, like $400 a kid for rural aid. It was a ginormous increase over,
That's nuts.
but, so they're working on it too, and I think you guys, you don't get rural aid now, because you're a little too big and too dense.
Yep.
But there's different tiers, and if it got to that other tier, you would get it. So Peter and I have some towns, like New Braintree and Hardwick, there's a couple of them that get rural aid now, but some of the bigger ones, like Ware and Spencer, they don't, but they would get it if we got to a certain point.
Okay, and the last one, well, it's not the last, but the very last. How about budget and finance predictions, and how it will affect cities and towns in this upcoming fiscal year?
So our revenue collections from the last fiscal year grew by 7.1%, so, higher than what we anticipated. So, I shouldn't be saying this at a public meeting, especially now, given all the challenges, but we are actually, right now, given what we know, we are in a better financial position than we thought we would be. But again, we're taking everything,
Right.
and what we know right now.
I never would have said that.
I'm trying to be straightforward about it because they just released this information actually within the last week or so about the tax collection. So the revenues, were slightly above benchmark, which is good news. We also have the millionaire's tax in Massachusetts, which was adopted. So that's money that we help to use backfill areas that are in the budget, and then we use that whole formula, we mix it up, and we figure out how we're going to dispense the money. We're going to do a budget closeout in the coming months. That's where we basically square up all the accounts in the Commonwealth so that we can close the books for the previous fiscal year. My instinct tells me right now, with the numbers we're looking at, is that we will close that with some money to spare, which means we would most likely take those excess funds and we would ship them over to our rainy day
I was
account.
just gonna say,
Yep.
that's
So
generally what you do anyway.
That's what it looks like now, but on this public meeting, don't quote me on that.
No,
That's
no,
just
no,
a,
but
that's just a
it's
best
good
guess
to
right
know.
now. That's what we think is gonna happen. Now, of course, the big things that we can't predict are obviously what's happening on the federal level, right?
Right.
So the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, our budget is around $62 billion, give or take, 100 million here or there. We depend upon approximately, given the day of the week, between 17 and 20 billion dollars from the federal government in one form or another. So that's 100 different programs that get stretched out from the feds, comes back to the Commonwealth, we incorporate it in our budget, and then that goes out to different programs that are used across the state. So obviously, everything that happens on the federal level we get impacted by. You're seeing a lot of things in the news now. You're seeing about reclassifications in a lot of different categories. One of the big ones has to do with particular benefits that are categorized on the federal level that are going to come down to the state. What the state ultimately has to decide on is if those things get changed dramatically. So if those funding resources get changed dramatically from the federal level, the state has to figure out what are we going to do about that, right? It doesn't mean that the programs necessarily end. It doesn't mean that we destroy them. It means that the state is going to have to figure out what is going to take priority and how are we going to shift our money minus what we're going to get from the federal government. I'll give you a quick example. When COVID came around, the federal government saw the importance of fully funding school lunches, right, their school meal program. And we get 100% reimbursement from the federal government. After, COVID and the pandemic went away, the Commonwealth took a look at that and we said, well, this has worked out pretty good and it's helped out our school systems and our municipalities a lot. So what do we do now? Massachusetts has decided to fund school lunches in the Commonwealth, right? So that's no federal money comes in, we take it, we allocate it from the state resources that we collect, and now we fund the school lunch program. So we have a million different examples, and this is not unique. This is not a Democrat, Republican, who controls Congress, who controls the corner office. We've done it through multiple administrations where federal cuts have been made on one program or another. The state comes together, we figure out what the value of that program is and whether or not we're going to move it forward. So there's a lot of uncertainty on what's going to happen there. As I kind of round this out, obviously the biggest budget buster is healthcare. Right?
That's gonna be.
So you're seeing that, we all see it in every municipality, you're seeing it in the contracts that you negotiate, you're seeing it with your workforce. Every single entity across the Commonwealth is dealing with the same issue related to healthcare. So how Medicare and Medicaid programs get shifted on the federal level and how those matriculate down to the state, we still don't really have answers for that. We keep hearing about the big beautiful bill on the federal level. Many of those components in the big beautiful bill, and we're actually doing the full analysis of that right now, coupling it with what happens in Massachusetts. Many of those things don't kick in until many years down the road. It could be in 26, 27, 28. So we're not going to get the immediate hit. What we will consider looking at, though, is how do we prepare for what we anticipate is going to happen as a result of the federal change. The work requirement that you've all heard about, the 20-hour minimum work requirement. What the administration is really doing and what Massachusetts really needs to focus on is our public assistance programs are excellent programs. They were created for a reason. They help individuals that need the resources. There's not a colleague that we serve with on either side of the political aisle or in either chamber that is not supportive of these things. The problem we have is that they are outgrowing the way the resource was created. So the specifics about how we look at it, how those resources get disseminated is extremely important. We just got the report, this is public information, just came out in the last couple of days. Our unemployment fund, in the next 18 months is going to be bankrupt, right? That's a problem. We've got to figure out how we are going to deal with that because those are individuals with the expectation that that resource is going to be there, God forbid, if something happens to them. So what those parameters look like are going to be extremely important, but we're going to if we don't deal with it now, we are going to be brought there by force. And the worst way to deal with these things is by force, as you know, as local officials. You want to be preemptive, you want to make sure that you try and tee these things up beforehand. And so those are the things that we're very conscious about and we're going to focus on in the next year or two.
All right, and lastly, any comments on healthcare for the region?
Well, I don't want to take up all the time. Look,
You're doing good.
Yeah, look.
You sound like you're running for president every time.
I know that you've been following, what's going on.
Of course.
But I also know, I heard recently what happened in Worcester at UMass Memorial, what's happened at UMass, Medical Center.
Certainly.
Because of all the cuts that are coming down, they're cutting programs and different things, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but.
Yeah.
I don't think it puts any of us on the spot. I mean, look at, obviously, the issue, the parochial issue here in Ware is one that's near and dear to us as a legislative delegation too, and that was the closure of Mary Lane. There's not a legislator that's here tonight or that has previously served this community that was happy about that decision. Rep. Berthium and I got a call 45 minutes before the announcement went public that they were eventually closing Mary Lane. So they didn't clue any of us into this decision. And I think you all know.
I was yelling on the phone.
Yeah, we were, some four-letter expletives were exchanged, and we were not happy about that, and we were very public about it. Having said that, there is nothing we can do about that decision. They made that decision.
It's done.
We did everything we possibly could to create as much chaos for them in that process to make sure that the interests of the town were being discussed and were being looked at. Having said that now, obviously, the issue is, what do we do from this point forward, right? How do we move forward with the community? I think that's what everybody wants to see happen. It's not, we can't do anything about yesterday. We can only do about what's going forward. So, I think the overwhelming information that we've received from the community in the last 4 or 5 years since this closure was announced is that there is an interest in having healthcare in the town, right? Now, what that looks like and how that moves forward, that's obviously an issue for debate. That's not an issue, though, that we decide as a legislative delegation. We are here to support the community. So as we work with Stuart, as we work with your board, as we work with other entities in the town, we are here to help. That's what our mission is as legislators.
And you're fully aware, because I think I've tried to keep, and I know Stuart has tried to keep all of you abreast of what's been transpiring.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, we have absolutely zero, issue with the communication. The Stuart has been excellent, your board has been excellent with us throughout the course of the last few years. There's things as a legislative delegation, we simply can't get involved with because we have no power or authority. Bay State is a private entity at the end of the day. And so there's standards that they have to follow, there's rules and regulations they have to follow like anybody else. What we want to do is figure out what's going to best help the town move forward. And we don't do that on an island. We do that in conjunction with your board and with others in the community that you see fit. I'll give a shout out to Dr. Treesh, who has been a good communicator with the legislative delegation. And we've had discussions and meetings with a lot of entities. When Bay State made this decision, we were on the phone with every healthcare contact that we've built up over the years to say, do you have any interest in coming to Ware? We will do anything we can to get you to take a look at this place. I don't even think we could tell you how many people we've reached out to on a personal level. Not talking about a public statement or a letter or anything else. I'm talking about sweat equity into getting them to come to Ware and see if there was an interest in that wonderful facility that we all supported for so many years. So it was not from lack of trying, I can tell you that. Nobody wanted to see the closure of the building, let alone the change of healthcare being in that location either. It is heartbreaking. We feel that. We know the community feels that. But what do we do from this point on? And you have to give us that guidance. We take it from the town.
So we will continue to keep you informed as to, what's going on with Bay State. We meet regularly, and we're moving forward. So, Stuart?
Just wanted to follow up on the previous question. Do you have a sense on the likelihood of success of two things, or success is the wrong word, but how they will move forward, both earmarks and 9B cuts?
9C cuts?
9C, thank you.
Yep.
Well, the governor, I think we had issued out a letter that the governor has basically said she's going to review those. She's holding off on all of those until this fall. That may mean October, as Todd had mentioned. We have an end of the year budget coming up, supplemental budget, which these earmarks are not affected by. However, they're a way for us to kind of see where that revenue number comes in, see what's happening, and see what we can move forward with. When she makes those decisions, as you all know, the governor has unilateral authority to do that. We've obviously, and all of us here have come out strongly against, trimming these earmarks down at all. I think a lot of them, they're not just about, festivals, they're about public safety or about infrastructure and things that we put in. So to us, those are the most important things that we can do for our communities within those kind of, those earmark processes that go forward. So we're watching that very closely. We're advocating to try to keep this going. As Todd mentioned, we're keeping our eye really closely on what happens, not just with revenue, but with what starts to come down from the federal government. And I think that all ties in together, where it's kind of a wait and see how is this going to start to shake out. And I think there's been a lot of discussions, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but there's been discussions about tariffs and what does that mean? Is that going to cause inflation? Is that going to hurt the economy? And so far those haven't played out. What will happen going forward? Again, every month that goes by, you know more. And I think that's I'm not here to defend the decision because I don't like it. I think we need to get those earmarks out the door. But I think that's what the governor's trying to do is take a while to see what we're up against, if the picture's changing, how is it changing, and what we might have to do going forward. I think Todd mentioned as well, and we all did it as selectmen, right? When you know you have to make cuts, it's better off to do them early and make them smaller, but maybe broader, instead of waiting till the end when you have to cut deep and hard in some specific programs. So I'd like to have more, but we're going to keep our eye on it, and we're going to be making
But
sure
I
that we...
would tend to think that, December, January, we'll have a better outlook as to where we
Yeah,
are.
probably before that, yeah.
If the governor stays on track with what has been done in the previous years, I believe, don't quote me, but I think we're pretty close in the neighborhood, that earmarks didn't get released till like maybe October or November in most cases. Also, they use a system now where they typically have the earmarks, meaning that if you have, let's say, $50,000 earmark that's in the budget for a project specific, that the administration, if they're going to move forward with it, they'll release half of it at one time of the year, and then they'll release the other half later. 9C power, though, has been used, and it happened just a couple of years ago. So what we try to warn municipalities about is if you have an earmark in there, don't assume that you're going to get the money and go spending it and expect that you're going to get a state reimbursement.
Right.
The other thing, but you need to be prepared to spend it because, like the coach, it turns into a pumpkin at the end of the fiscal year. So it has to be transmitted to the municipality or whatever entity gets the earmark by the end of that fiscal year. Once that happens, it's gone. And so so if you have a project that's pending that's attached to earmark funds, and this is a terrible answer, you have to be ready to go and ready to get the money, but at the same time, you have to kind of wait with bated breath to see what the administration is, and we'll keep you very much posted on all that.
And that's what I say as well, is that when they become available, when they are released, execute the projects as soon as humanly possible.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
What she did in her first budget, she cut like half. So if it was $50,000, earmarks for a town, they were released 25. So what a lot of us did is the next year we just put that back, So like I had one for West Brookfield, and it was $50,000 for a new truck or whatever it was. They got 25, so the next year I put 25 back in to try to make them whole for the second fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah, and would you just one more point I'll make is the governor has asked for expanded 9C authority.
I saw that.
Yes, so just keep that on your radar screen. I mean, I think I can speak for my colleagues. It's something we are wildly against.
Didn't seem like the speaker, Senate President, were too enthused about it.
No, I don't think they're too enthusiastic about it, but basically, under 9C power now, the governor has, a $61 billion budget, but the governor can't just pull out the pen and say, well, I'm going to take from here. The categories are literally very small, and earmarks, one of the reasons that they always go back to those is because that's one of the small categories that they can access to reduce money. But for the majority of those categories, they can't touch. The governor has requested this year for an expansion of that authority, meaning going into territory that is beyond what she currently has. And I'd be surprised if that moved forward, as Rep. Berthium had mentioned, but it's out there, so just be aware of it.
Okay. Do the board members have any further questions?
Yeah, well, I have, I share these concerns, and particularly the role of the federal government as far as money is coming in and how little control you're going to have on that. I personally am concerned, for example, what we're going to be doing about forever chemicals. That's coming right down the pike, but I don't know what's going to happen with that, and I don't know anybody is going to have a good answer for that. of that. It's just one of these things, we'll have to wait and see how it plays out as I see it.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think that, the kind of the tone that we've been taking in the legislature is, as much as there's a lot of talk about policy changing on the federal level that's gonna hurt the states, we are not moving forward as a legislative delegation or as a government body in general, anticipating that certain cuts are gonna come down, because all we're doing is talking about pie in the sky at this point. It would be real foolish for us to say, oh my gosh, the federal government wants to do A, B, C, D, and E, and it's gonna hurt us by 10 billion, so we better cut the budget by 10 billion, and then come to find out, those things never really happen. I think, one of the biggest challenges we have right now is we don't have any certainty about what's gonna happen. It's kinda like you find it out when it's, too late. So we're moving forward with our budget on track like we usually do. We are doing what we would do from year to year, on track with the primary categories, and if we get bad news, Mr. Selectman, we're gonna have to deal with it one way or the other, so.
And the other thing, as a senior citizen, one of the things I've heard from a number of senior citizens, the people that have handicaps, and some people have invisible handicaps, and they get out of their car, and they get all these dirty looks from people. You're not a handicapped person. Well, I'm wondering if you could have something with different stickers that would be identifying people that have invisible handicaps. I've been reading about this in some cases, and I think it's something that I ask you to consider.
Is it something that other places have done, John?
I'm sorry?
Is it something that other states or places have done that you've seen?
I've read some general statements on it, but I've talked to a number of people that were just so upset by, you can't see the handicap, and people just walk by them, they go, you're in that, how you do this, and that's really unfortunate.
Yeah.
But if you could have a different sticker that would people recognize as being, a different color, that person has handicap, but you just can't see it. It doesn't mean they're not handicapped.
It's interesting.
Something you might want to think
Yeah,
about.
Yeah, we can look at that.
It's interesting. Especially if somebody else has already done it, which,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, have these senior week moments here.
Stuart, you have anything else?
I'm all set.
No? Ken?
Just a question, and thank you for coming tonight and sharing this information. It's very helpful. And you mentioned earmarks, and of course, many communities use earmarks and rely on that. And Ware would be no different. We have some major projects on our horizon that certainly are going to be taxing to the town, and earmarks are one way to help us get our foot on that ladder, just start working towards achieving that project. Our swimming pool is one example. Redeveloping the Mary Lane parcel so we can comply with the zoning requirements established by town would be another. When is the right time for this board to communicate with you what we would consider to be a worthwhile consideration for an earmark to be submitted?
So what we do is, every year we do a brand new budget. The Committee on Ways and Means does what's called a consensus revenue hearing, and that usually happens in the late fall, beginning of the winter time, December time, something like that. Sometimes it happens later. December usually. It's been put off a couple of years depending on what's going on. What that consensus revenue hearing does is it brings together the financial experts from the state and other places, financial institutions, and they look at our books, and we try to come up with a rough guess of what we anticipate our revenue collection is going to be for the following fiscal year. Once we have that number, the Committee on Ways and Means, which usually starts in January, February time, conducts its public hearings across the state, and we start already at that point writing the budget. Now, the governor by that time will have submitted her budget already, happens in January, but we are already drafting the budget in the House, and then the Senate gets their version of the budget at the end. We're drafting our budget in November, December already. So I would say if you're trying to communicate something with us related to an earmark, we should probably sit down, no later than the end of the year, of this year, for preliminary discussion, and then maybe come up with a footprint or a plan for a filing, because we will do the budget in April in the House, and then the Senate will do the budget a few weeks afterwards. So the sooner we have a conversation about it, the better. Also recognizing that if that earmark comes through, you're not talking about till the next fiscal
Correct,
year.
correct.
So, you have to plan out your timing and everything. If you're looking to break ground on a new swimming pool in April of next year, you ain't getting an earmark from us
Right,
to do that.
understood.
Right? So
Understood.
timing matters. So I would say for us, we're happy to sit down with you to have discussion on some of these things.
Okay.
And also to give you kind of the pragmatic approach of what we think is doable.
I've already discussed with the chair of the Parks and Recreation about having a joint meeting with them as our board, so we can figure out where we're gonna move from. This has dragged on way too long, and we continue to apply for grants or whatever, but we want to sit down and evaluate what is in the town's best interest for the future.
I think our drop dead date is early April, like we file them
Yep.
second week
Okay.
of
To file it,
Peter,
yeah.
I think,
And
or a
then-
month after.
Yeah, and then we do a month later, and so what we do, in our office, in the Senate office, we coordinate with the reps.
Yep.
Because we don't have to duplicate efforts. Even though it goes to conference committee, if Donnie or Todd puts in a X amount of money for the splash pads or something, then we don't have to put in the same thing. And usually they end up hopefully staying in conference committee, but.
Okay.
But yeah, we typically go through with cities and towns on the list of capital improvements and things that they're looking for.
Okay.
And there's no pride of authorship between the three of us. We do everything together. So-
I know you do, I know
Yeah.
you do, but I know it's been on my radar for a while, and I know it's now on Mr. Willet's and the other board members, so.
Zach, David?
Do you have-
Yeah, Todd, you had mentioned that considering our interest in healthcare, getting healthcare back here, and you had sort of beaten the bushes talking to people. What are some of the responses that the three of you have received by the powers to be in the background?
Boy, I could run the gamut for you, so let me just think of a few off the top of my head. One was the age of the facility, right? So, and a couple of folks, and now I'm going now back years when we first did the outreach.
Yeah.
We provided information that actually Bay State and the town had provided relative to the building, the property, the structure of the facility, things like that. And there's some individuals that were actually interested in taking a look actually came out and did take a look. The ones that didn't get that far were, I think, more looking on a couple of different levels. Number one, the size of the facility.
Okay.
That's a big facility.
Yeah.
Number two, a lot of healthcare institutions are downsizing their service areas, especially in rural territory, which means they're doing something like urgent care, convenient care. And they're not necessarily just doing it out of a large hospital facility, but they're doing it out of what we classify as a satellite type facility, right? So a smaller type, more manageable, not as big of a footprint, not as expensive to handle and to pay for, to operate, so to speak. And also the geographic territory, right? So typically it's a numbers game. How many people do you typically service in the regional catchment area? What other healthcare institutions do you have in close proximity to it? Those are always things that they consider. If they're affiliated with a larger healthcare institution, I don't think I have to tell anybody what happened with Stewart. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Stewart Hospital. So you saw this all play out in real time when the state got involved in Eastern Massachusetts. And of course, we as Central and Western Mass legislators were screaming from the rooftops about the state's intervention. But the state saw the challenge with what was ultimately happening with the people that were getting provided services, and then they did what they had to do. So I would say the site, the age of the building, the size of the facility, the geographic location that it's in, I think all of these things on one level or another were factors, at least in folks that I communicated with.
Yeah.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, the folks that I've talked to, and it's interesting, as I came from being a rep to a senator, I started out with Harrington Hospital. And Ed Moore over there did a great job, and eventually was able to move that hospital forward by going with UMass and getting UMass to acquire them. I became a senator, and we had problems up at Haywood, up in Gardner, and Athol. And so we're seeing a lot of these larger hospitals, and as Todd had mentioned, they're not just with Stewart, but with others around the state, that these community hospitals especially are just, they can't make ends meet with their payer mix and with the services that they're providing and the demographics of the people that they have. And so that's become a real difficulty. What Todd had mentioned is what I have talked to, and seems like the most successful footprint for these areas are those emergency clinics, the ready meds, there's a Gardner's got a great one up there that they just put in not that long ago, which was the Gardner Community Health Center. And Barry's got it's a UMass satellite, but those are what people seem to be more interested in trying to pursue. And so that's kind of the discussions that I've talked to people about, and what incentives, what reason would you want to expand? And a lot of them are saying, well, we're still trying to get our footing underneath us for the reimbursements and what's happening now. But the way I see this personally, not speaking for anyone else, is that's the direction that a lot of the rural places are going in, and I think it fits well.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for
I have
coming.
one more
last
thing, just a personal issue here. One of the things that we have here, people are using flushable
Wipes.
down.
There's no such thing as a flushable
down,
wipe.
and they're not flushable.
Right.
And this is causing all kinds of problems with our water treatment plant. And the thing is, they say on the card, flushable wipes.
Right.
And they're not. And it's just really annoying to see that someone is doing this. I'm going to talk about today because we sent out a flyer with our bill saying, don't flush these things, and we're trying to educate the people on it. Now, I don't know if anything can be done as far as labeling these things.
So legislation that would now label
I
them
don't know.
unflushable wipes?
I don't know, this is,
I'm not,
as I said, I'm just bringing one of these things that's just very frustrating to see happen, and it's very difficult to control, because now, if you go down to one of your drugstores, and I was down at Walmart, and there's a huge section where they sell these flushable wipes. A lot of stuff is being sold on this, and this is really creating a problem. And as I said, it's hard to change what's in the English language, but it's really unfortunate, that these things happen. And the disclaimers they put on this thing, you need to have a magnifying glass to read it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people just don't see it, and they perceive this. They say it's flushable, and they flush it. And it's just really creating a lot of problems.
well, we can take a look at it, right?
I know some
We'll get to the
places,
bottom of it.
so in Spencer, they have a problem with those coming off the system as well.
Yeah.
But, so what they were doing when they would start to clog the pipes, I guess you can kind of tell where they come from. So a friend of mine, Chris Houston, he had an apartment house, and they said they were gonna fine him because the flushable wipes kept clogging up the line by his thing, but, so I don't know if that's an avenue that you even wanna take, or I'm not sure.
We're gonna look into it further, how's that?
And we're putting a
let's call
great
it that.
Yes, we're doing
at our
something
wastewater
with
plant,
Well,
with COVID money, to catch them before they
I was gonna
get
say,
into.
isn't
Oh,
there,
yeah, yeah.
isn't there a mitigator that you can adopt at this,
Yes.
I think there is.
Yeah.
I think
There's a process,
Didn't
yeah.
Hardwick make them, Eagle Hill put one of those in because there was issues with,
Yeah.
you know what, you might
But we're
wanna
just having
ask
that
them.
installed now, and it was funded, 3 years ago, Stuart?
Yeah,
and that's installed at the plant?
it
Yeah.
will be.
It goes before,
Yeah.
right?
Oh.
Before
Yeah, it's a,
Anyway, not your issue, it's ours.
It's okay.
no, wipe the slate clean, sorry.
Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
All right.
See you guys.
Take care,
Enjoy a
thanks.
few days off.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Nicole.
Oh, you're welcome.
Oh, that must be Kathy's. All right, so I made my announcement, I told you about Mr. Kuzniak not being here, hopefully his work emergency situation will be done by the end of the day, otherwise it'll be a very long day for him. Comments and concerns of citizens? Nobody's here. I guess, John has a
Yeah.
comment.
Well, again, going back to what I was originally saying, is that a few weeks ago, Josh made a very, very good point, saying that these flushable are really causing a problem. And as a result of that, a flyer went out with the bill. And this when everybody that got a water sewer bill got this flyer. Sometimes people get these things and they don't read them. They just kind of toss them. So again, I want to bring this up. I'm hoping that the River News will also carry the story. It's really, really important. And I just wanted to actually read into this, so it's part of the record. Toilet paper, if some people seek alternatives to toilet paper, please do not flush. This could include baby wipes, paper towels, rags, or other products. After using your product, the first instinct would be to flush these down the toilet. That's a bad idea. The alternative products that will create blockages within the sewer pipes, creating a backup such that the wastewater will be turned back into your house or to your neighbors. It's a very large mess. It takes a great deal of effort by the DPW to respond to backup sewer blockages, determine where the problem is and who is responsible, and to fix the problem. If you must use an alternative to toilet paper, set up a dedicated container for the disposal of these used items. Thank you for your cooperation on this matter. Again, I think it's, right now, our best we can do is raise the public awareness. And I don't know what else we can do, but let's continue to make this presentation.
All right.
Wait a minute.
You got more?
Oh, yeah.
You're on a roll.
I'm on a roll. The second, you have to be able to find it, yeah. I had it, yeah. Yeah. This was the town aware the hazards mitigation plan
Yep.
update. I have comments on that, and that would be two. One, the maps that are associated with this are very, very difficult to read. I'm just holding one up. And we need to get larger maps and make it much easier to see. And I also mentioned that it would be good to get a specific map of the dams that are in existence in the town of Ware. I think there's about 15 or 16 of them along the area. And that, I think, would be very helpful. And the third part would be the fact that we have a retaining wall, a levee, that starts at the South Street Bridge and goes down toward Vernon Street. It's about 20 feet high, and it was built probably around 1940, 42. And it was built as a result of the flood of 1938. When the flood of 55 hit, Main Street was protected. And that was a very, very good thing to have happen. Unfortunately, somehow, this didn't get included. I think it would be important to have that document in the report, and I think it would also be important to have someone inspect that levee to see what condition it's presently in. It's 80 years old. It was built by, I believe, the Warner Brothers many, many years ago. They might have records on it, but I think certainly have some of the engineers take a look
Isn't that
at
one
it.
of the things that get inspected by the Army Corps of Engineers?
The section that Mr. Desmond is talking about from south, the concrete section
Right.
Yeah.
that was constructed by the state is not something that the Army Corps, they look at it, but there's no,
There's
how's it
analysis.
doing status. It's the section below that, which is the earthen
Right.
levee system that the Army Corps does,
Yeah.
so.
So I guess my point is, I think it's still important that we have someone look at that. So that would be, well, I don't know, maybe our engineering firms. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you can, from the outside, it looks pretty good, but it's maybe about 20-foot high levee. So that would be good to look at.
Sure. All right.
Oh, I'm so sorry. And then finally, submit that report to the Pioneer Valley, as well as any other comments that other people may have had. So it's good to get a report from the town to the Pioneer Valley on this mitigation plan.
Very good.
Okay.
Okay, I got a few things I want to mention.
Yep.
The first one is that we had a new election. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And along with the new election, don't we have elect new officers?
Oh, you can.
Okay. Just make a motion?
You can. Otherwise, you
Okay.
should wait till Josh comes.
Okay, all right, I'll wait till, all right, he's not here because, he had an
Yeah,
emergency there?
emergency.
Okay, All right, I'll wait till he comes back. I've had a lot of help from Stuart regarding the crosswalk over to Pine. And I've been in touch with the person who brought that to our attention. And what we're going to do next, hoping to do next, is put, because it's very difficult to see when you're coming around the corners. We got a lot of kids that are pick up the bus at both streets. So we're Stuart and I have been talking about this. So we're going to try to. There's a crosswalk right at the high school, as well as other locations. One by Dulac's garage also, where between the two curbing to curbing lines, perimeter lines, okay, there's painted areas in between it, which really brings it to the forefront of your eyes. So Stuart said he's going to be looking into that and seeing if we can get that taken care of in that area. Stuart, any update on Buckley Court?
Very brief one. Nicole found the letter from the engineer for how to move forward beyond the repairs that they've made so far to make it run. We'll give that to the facilities director, and he's ready to take it and run, get the pumps up and running, and then I think they'd be great. It's a particularly appropriate question as we see a hurricane just pass us by, so it's certainly the right season.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so he'll be working on, the facilities director will be,
Yes.
excuse me, working on that?
Yes.
Okay. Another question is, somebody had asked me, who sees the complaints from the public or from the taxpayers if they have an issue with an employee, a town employee? Who's privy to those complaints?
The recipient of the call. So the board used to, just several months ago, require that I keep a complaint log and then get that just the same way you get my schedule.
Yeah.
I stopped that, again, probably 6 months ago. Most of those were complaints about things, not complaints about people.
Mm-hmm.
So if the board would like that started, I don't have a problem with that. Complaints about people a little touchier, so as it relates to...
Wouldn't that go to HR, Stu?
It depends on whether it's... It should go to the people's supervisors.
Yeah.
It depends, like, is it an unprofessional thing or is it a professional thing related to their job? That depends on
Jack,
how we would share that.
Did you have a concern over complaint about a pothole versus complaint about an employee's attitude?
Employee's attitude.
And
Okay, I'm not gonna...
I think that's a very different, in my opinion, a very different situation than a pothole, because the employee is an employee, the town has policies, that has to be respected, but it begs the question, what is the process that when that complaint ends up ultimately at Stewart, what is the process that is followed to track? And you mentioned certainly the department manager should be aware and all the other considerations, and then from that, what is able to be shared with the board, just as kind of like a quality check about not the details, but perhaps a category of issue that was raised and is being followed. But I think we have to be respectful of the employee
Yeah, I think you
and
have
what
to-
they do, as opposed to like the crosswalk issue, which is
Yeah.
pretty cut and dry.
Yeah.
So that's my thinking on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there is a line there that said, I just don't like the person, the police officer gave me a bad time. And
Yeah.
that may not necessarily be true, that has to be filtered out.
But not only
Somewhere
does
down
it
the
have to be
road.
filtered out, it has to be investigated, and then
Yeah.
the employee has the right to respond, you know, through department head and or
Yeah.
through the town manager. It's a personnel issue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm concerned that there may be, and I don't know, you know, I'm not saying that I know something about a person or whatever, but just that if there are a number of people that are concerned with the actions, how they got treated or whatever, I don't know, and there's several people, if we don't know about it, I think some people should know it, maybe the board should be, you know, Board of Selectmen should be privy to that as well. I just wanted to throw that out.
I think
And
you would
to-
have to actually
to-
check legally.
So, I guess I would ask back, just so we're clear where we're headed.
Yeah.
To what purpose?
My general thought is that if it's habitual, that it's gonna be taken care of.
By,
Uh,
this
by-
is my point, it's.
He's gonna
it's-
be aware
it's-
of it, first of all.
No, thank you. As Mr. Willett said, ultimately, if it goes past the supervisor, it's gonna end up on my doorstep. Okay, so, not happy. It's possible to let you aware of it, as long as the board recognizes it's not your job to take care of it.
Oh, no, it's not the job, no.
Okay.
No, I have no problem, no, the only person that we have, okay, is, over the town, over the town manager.
Absolutely.
But you know, we can't go to, any employee and, reprimand them for any reason or ask them for any favors
Right,
or
so,
whatever.
so maybe it would help, Madam Chair, to send the employee handbook to the board, which has all the
Yes, I think
policies
that
and
would be helpful.
processes.
The other thing, if I might say it,
Yeah,
it might be helpful if you're getting people speaking to you about the situation, that you refer them directly to the town manager.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying
Yes.
that you do, but
Yeah.
that is the proper venue, so to speak. And then he can look into it, whether it's
Yeah.
directly with the supervisor and or himself.
Again, let me add again, this goes back a few years. When complaints like that came in, we had a requirement that you have it in writing and sign it. If somebody has a complaint, I want to see it, I don't want just a hearsay type. I want you to submit it.
Legally, he has to have the
something-
ability to do an investigation or to
Not,
make it, not on hearsay.
a document signed, dated.
But there is an employee handbook, and it might be helpful for you to see it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's fair enough.
And whenever a discussion like that starts, it always leaves kind of an impression in people's minds that there's issues or problems, and I just want to say that the town employees for Ware give so much to us and have done such great work. Nancy shared what they did to help the election happen, and we've heard stories how police officers and firefighters have done great things, and that's just replicated across the town. So from my point of view, what we're talking about is a very small occurrence. In my experience,
I would expect that it would be a small occurrence.
it's a very small occurrence.
Yeah.
And but what Stuart can share with us in terms of a broad category and how he's responded to it, that would be informative.
Yeah, okay. And one other thing, and this is neglectful from the Board of the members of the Board of Selectmen, and myself included. And I've mentioned it a couple of times, and I want to probably put in a motion form, but open to a discussion, is that we have evaluations to do. Okay, and it's unfair, in this case, our evaluations Would be Stewart and, is that it? Stewart? Would be Stewart. Okay, and I think it's shortchanging Stewart to, for us being neglectful and not giving him an evaluation. And so I want to get the feedback of others, and I want to get a date on when we should have these evaluations.
So it's my understanding, because I don't participate, because he's also my supervisor, that Mr. Kuzniers has been working with the town's labor attorney, and this is to be starting to move forward. Stuart, you probably had more discussion with Josh.
No, but that is exactly where we left off the last time the board
Right.
raised it, was Mr. Kuzniers had asked the labor attorney to create the forms that the board would use and the questions. So
Right.
can check with her how we're doing.
Okay, so I'll have Josh contact the labor attorney and see where that process is.
Okay, all right. And then when Josh comes back, we'll have the election of officers.
If you want, yeah,
Okay, all right. Thank you.
all right, and do you have anything, Ken?
No, just glad to be here. Look forward to working with everybody. Want to recognize
Yeah.
Cynthia and Kathy, thanks for running a good campaign
Ditto.
as well.
Ditto.
Look forward to working with you and want to
All
thank
right.
the voters who turned out.
You came back, do you have any comments or concerns?
Yeah.
Yeah, can I? So first, yes, congratulations, Ken, and definitely will be here and participating and doing all that stuff. So a couple of things. One, when you just said that, Jack, I know I just came in. So just as, again, people who've been watching the board, a few years ago, and this is why this is just opening my mind, Tracy Opolinski was on the board with, I think it was Alan Whitney at that time, and they went through extensive an evaluation form for Stewart and setting up this whole objective, and so questioning that we have to redo that. I'm hoping you guys can find that someplace. They
Please.
did a lot of work on that, right, Stewart? I mean, sent things out to the public, and it was that whole,
It was too extensive.
Well,
There's
yeah.
There's a lot simpler way to do an evaluation. It led to unrealistic goals
okay.
and never got finished.
Okay, then that's sad, and I totally agree, and I definitely, that would have been one of the things, if I was on the board, that I'd be looking for, is that everybody should have an objective evaluation once a year, and then a follow-up during the year to see where things are at and set proper goals. But yes, not with the public, I agree, that was like a little too much, but I just figured that was in place. I just wanted to say that quick. And then, just a couple other things, no answers tonight, but something I wanted to put forward. Again, being on the campaign, a lot of things happen and you hear a lot of stuff. But a couple things I would like to see, and I don't know if it has to be done by policy or by bylaw change, and I know Josh isn't here. But one of the things I said, I always assumed, now again, right, with the assume, don't do that, that we had a bylaw that said if you are an elected member of a board, whether it be Board of Selectmen, school board, all of these things, that you would have to physically reside in the town of Ware. It sounds like then we didn't have that, and that's how we had to have the special election and all the issues that came with that, because Terry Smith was not physically residing here, there was a lot. So if we don't have that in place, I just want to suggest to the board and to the town that we do that, because I would only want people
Kathy,
representing me
it's a state law that if you are a registered voter in Ware, you are allowed to run for an elected office.
we can't overdo that to say we want the person to
In order
reside?
to run for a elected office, I will check further with council, but as long as you are a registered voter in Ware, you are allowed to seek an elected office in the town of Ware.
Okay, I just would like to see if the town can overrun that, because I certainly would
Let's do it.
vote to do that.
But, well, I just want to follow up, but to be a registered voter in Ware, you have to reside in Ware.
Right,
No?
yes.
Yeah.
Well, that whole domicile thing came into play, where he wasn't physically
That was a totally
here.
different thing.
Very different.
That
But-
was a totally different thing. He was domiciled in Ware.
Yeah.
When he ran for office, he was a registered voter.
Yeah.
And then things changed in his personal life, and he was ordered to vacate his home temporarily.
But you understand what I'm saying?
I do understand, but we can't change the law, because domicile comes into play, as you know, through that hearing that was held.
I get that for voting. I'm just saying, so I'm just saying, for me, as a registered voter in town,
Yeah.
if I had somebody that I want on the board, and I heard from many people, never would have voted if they knew the person did not reside in the town. And I would think the town would have that ability to make that one of our bylaws, that you live in town if you're an elected official making decisions for people in this town. Putting it out there, I will come back to hear answers from people, but I would think that that's something we as a town people can vote on. Even if it's a state law, our town can do things, I would assume. So I'm putting that one out there. The other thing I heard a lot about, and I know by bringing this up now, personally, I had always said voting hours to me should always be the same. 7 in the morning to 8 at night. Voting is a privilege, it's a right, it's all of those things that people call it. I was not happy when the board voted to change it from 10 to 8. I know everybody says everybody knew. Well, there was a lot of people that did not know. There was a lot of people who did not vote. Not saying it's going to change the election, trust me, Ken, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that the rights of people first need to be. So I want to know if there's a policy that can be put in place, because I know this has come up before, where we've asked to change the hours, and usually the Board of Selectmen has said no, 7 to 8, 7 in the morning to 8 at night. I'd like to have, if there has to be a policy, so that it's not changed, because the next board, the board changes every year, the makeup. So, like some consistency, and to me, it should always be the same, so everybody knows what it is. I understand the change of venue, that was, as Nancy said,
But the
totally out
change
of
of
it.
hours, this board voted on, and it was publicized week after week. It was on the website, so there was
I understand that, but what I'm
notice.
saying is, people have habit, and people work. I did like, and again, my other thing, and like I said, I want to bring it forward, I don't know if it's the bylaws that need to be changed or policies. I personally like Tuesday. I always said Tuesday is better than Mondays. I don't know why our town does Mondays. People just coming back from vacation, coming back from the weekend. I thought Tuesday was great, but the hours, if it was the full hours, so just whether it needs to be a policy or bylaw, I wish Josh was here. I
So
would
the
reach out to
bylaw
him.
for the town of Ware currently says the annual town election will be on the second Monday in April. So that would be a change.
Bylaw change, okay, thank you. And then, my other thing, now again, I brought it up, and I know I'm not gonna be right here, but I think it's a bylaw change, but I would really like to see on our town meeting, because again, we lost a year, I brought it up before, about having a question on the town meeting, whether the town would like to resurrect, I'll say resurrect because we had it years ago, a water sewer elected board. And what do we have to do that? I know we have to go to town meeting to get their approval, and Stuart, I know you looked into this, it's a bylaw change too? And then the election would be next April.
The town meeting would have an article
Article.
to create a board of water and sewer commissioners, and then it would have to appear as a ballot question to establish a water and sewer commissioner's office.
Okay, so I really wouldn't, so, I just wanna make sure, so we have, on the town meeting, we'll have to do an article. So I guess I'm gonna ask, not an answer tonight, I would like the board to go ahead and do that, so it could just be on there. If not, let me know, and then I will go get the signatures, so we have it at the town meeting. And then it would be voted in April to have it, but then we wouldn't have a board till the following April?
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Well,
So
it's gotta go to
But
ballot.
it has to go to ballot, but now we have a charter too, so we would have to check to see whether or not, because that's a major change in establishing another elected office, whether or not that requires a charter commission, so it's some checking.
Well, Stuart had checked into this last year, that's why I'm gonna ask him maybe to pull that back up, because I know Jack had asked last summer with the lawyers what we had to do, and I think it had to go to town meeting, is what I remember, and it was too late when we found out in September to put it on last year's town meeting. Ring a bell, Stuart?
Yes.
And I think it was bylaw, right? At that point, I think it is a bylaw.
Well, it's part of the charter, so that adds a twist. But then what Mrs. Talbot said, town meeting, so maybe that's the confusion. Either way, whether it was bylaw or the town meeting and then ballot would work.
All right, so I just want to make sure I follow with those three. So that's it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Cynthia?
I also had a idea for a bylaw change, which is when I was complaining multiple times about the permit process over at the Mary Lane. And that I was told by the board that you would not make a determination. You checked with the lawyers and they said that our town does not have an appeal process in the bylaws, and that's where it would have to be. So something that I'm hoping to try to get going is an article to have a bylaw under the building commissioner, so that way if there is a problem, a disagreement, that there is an appeal process, because there isn't one right now.
So are
Do
you
you
talking
remember-
about demolition delay, or are we talking about something else?
Any appeal.
This is about all the different permits that I believe there should have been some permits to cut the electricity, the water, decommissioning the building, all those things should have required a local permit. It wasn't falling under DEP, which is abatement. There was this whole thing that went on and on for months and months. And so then the lawyers took a look at it, and they said that it couldn't be elevated up to the board. The board did not want to make a determination whether or not there were violations or not, because I could not escalate it to the state level, because the process is, it goes to the town manager, then it goes to the board, and then if you deny that, then I can appeal it to the state, but you would not make a determination at all at that time. And you check with the lawyers, and they said, well, we don't have an appeal process, and that would have to be a bylaw.
Do you want to respond to that or not? Because I'm
No,
confused by this, because I know.
my only thought is, it's an interesting concept. I would ask, or I think town meeting would ask, that it be very specific what you're appealing. Because
Right.
if you say all permits, that's,
I mean, if
gonna
we're
be
talking
crazy.
in the instance of the current demolition that's ongoing,
so that one's a
the
perfect example of one that needs one.
right, but
well.
all the appropriate permits have been secured, is my understanding,
It's
so
just
that the
not-
demolition could
But that's not
move
what
forward.
Cynthia's asking. She's asking before that,
Mhm.
how to appeal it. And I should,
I think.
without going to the state, there's
Well, I
no real
think
appeal.
literally you would have to get some kind of legal response as to how you could possibly put something in place so that it would be
Completely agree.
doable.
Right, because the system is not designed for me or the board to oversee appeals of the building commissioner
Right.
or another department head.
If I can ask Cynthia a question, if I understand correctly, I heard you say things like a discontinuation of electrical service, and then you mentioned something else, that no permits were issued.
Yes.
Is that the type of thing you're looking to have a process to appeal the building commissioner's decision not to issue a discontinuation of electrical service?
It's because there were no permits at all issued on the local level. There was a lot of confusion going back and forth, where the building commissioner thought that, well, it's a DEP, they're abating, it's their purview to check, to make sure that the electrical's being cut the right way, that all these things are being done. But the DEP said, no way, all we do is abatement. Checking to make sure that asbestos and hazardous materials are being removed properly. So therefore, and even actually if you look on our electrical and plumbing permits, it says that this was required on the state level, that this should be a local permit, and no local permits were issued.
So,
But you wouldn't be taking a permit out, you'd only be taking a permit out if you were going to sever electrical.
Which was what done,
Activity.
yes.
And they would have had to do this in order to start the demolition process.
They did.
Right, but you have to have a permit in order to cut all those services, and there was no permit. And then there was different answers going back and forth, and one answer was, well, they're going to eventually demolish it, so you don't need a permit now, because a year and a half from now, you're going to be demolishing it, and that didn't make sense. So that's why, when I was looking to the actual codes, and that's where everything was going back and forth, and and you really have to know your stuff in order to appeal it to the right level. There's no appeal. So what we've got now is a structure where then the building commissioner, what she says is dictates and nobody questions her. And it's not just the Mary Lane property. We know that there's other people in town that have questioned, and there's no appeal process. And so they have to get a lawyer, and they have to get an architect, and they have to prove that they don't need to do such and such, which is what they were told.
But just in all fairness, that process you just described is in place. It is an appeal process. And it's when people disagree with the building commissioner exerting her authority in enforcing the state building code. And there is an appeals process within the state building code. And that's what you just described. What I think I heard you describe relative to the Mary Lane issue is you would have liked to have seen permits issued earlier at the abatement, not at when it was officially declared for the demolition. And again, if I'm paraphrasing, so please, that what you wanted to appeal was the lack of the issuance of a permit,
Yes,
not the issuance of a permit.
exactly.
Okay, I think that's a little bit different. I think that's a little bit different.
Right.
So there were no local permits being issued, which, thank goodness nobody got hurt, because you're supposed to be making sure that they're licensed and, that a proper electrical
Yeah.
person's doing it, not an abatement person. So, that
But I
was.
guess I question, I hope I say it right, if they were only doing the abatement at the time and DEP says, well, we don't care whether or not there's an electrical permit, but then the time came when the abatement was finally done and that everything that was required to begin the demolition, and we were being told now all the permits are in place to start the demolition. So when would your appeal process start? I guess that's where I'm
The DEP was
confused.
saying that those type of permits should be done on the local level. The DEP was saying, we don't issue those permits.
Right, they only
need to
did
go
the
to the
abatement.
local.
Right.
Right, and there were no local permits issued for that type of work.
But I
And
guess-
the real issue started when, during a demolition delay, the interiors were gutted, the interior walls, all completely cut, when we know that that was the purpose of the demolition delay being put on the entire campus because they killed the infrastructure. And it shouldn't have been done. So that's why I started going into it. I said, wow, there's no permits here, and there should be permits. So, and it's not just this situation, because we know that there's been lots of other situations in town where people disagree with what the building commissioner is saying. And then, but there's
Different
nobody else, so whatever she says rules, there's no
But
way.
there's the state appeals board.
Right, so in the first situation, because I don't have enough detail for what was just
Right.
said, I agree, there's gotta be either a state building inspector or a state appeals that can do it. It's not the zoning board of appeals. It's-
Right.
So, it's not, I agree, it's not DEP, and you're questioning her decision, then you question her supervisor on the state level. And I know you tried that, but that's gotta be the answer. I don't think we can set up outside of, like, if you're talking about other things, we disagree with the approval or denial of a building permit, that can go to the zoning board of appeals. That's their purpose, depending on, I mean, you're not gonna appeal whether you use a 2x4 or a 4x6, but the use or the allowance of things, we have an appeals process. And I suspect in the state code, as Mr. Willett said, that your process already exists for who to appeal to.
On the state level, it cannot be from, this is what I was told, because I tried the building board of appeals, I tried, I think it was Brianna, whatever her name is, the third district
Yeah.
person. And she would not make a determination, and the building of codes appeal would not make a determination, because from what I understand, the escalation process is that it has to come up to, and then if the select board thinks that whatever is agrees, or doesn't want to make a decision. If you don't want to make a decision, it can't get escalated up to the state level, as far as I understand it. And that's where we were when I was bringing this issue forward. And Brianne, would not make a decision either, because it was down at this level that had to make some kind of a decision first.
But I guess I question that, I don't know that the select board would have the authority.
I completely agree, but we can read.
I think it needs researching, but I
We'll
just.
talk to Brianna and somehow create a flow chart of how it's supposed to work to
Okay.
address that.
Okay.
So this would then also apply to, I don't want to mention names,
Names of other businesses or
but
something
other
like that.
businesses that have had the same kind of issue where they had to go and get a lawyer and an architect and
Well,
everything to prove.
I just want to,
To prove what? I'm
my,
sorry.
my prior career was in the fire service, and I oversaw a lot of construction projects and worked hand in glove with building commissioners and whatnot, so I'm not an expert at it. But we had guidance documents that regulated what we could do and how we inspected and what we required, and there was an appeals process for people. But my experience in working with building officials, when there was an appeal, they are looking at typically a set of technical plans that has been presented to them and has been submitted to either get a building permit issued or some kind of determination. And there are requirements for that, and it has to comply with the building code. And yes, people very often have to engage with a professional engineer to design that to code and to see a stamp on it to certify on behalf of the community it meets the code, reasonable. The building official, in their interpretation of the code in the exact circumstance, may disagree and say, I don't feel that's appropriate, this is the appropriate response. They can appeal it. They can, my understanding is there is a process within the state building, but that's during the permit process and during the review. The asking for a review of a non-issuance of a permit or the lack of an issuance of a permit, that I've never been exposed to. It's always been within the confines of the code or the regulation, the individual who represents the community to apply it and enforce it. And there is, in my experience, there's always a review process. And I think in this particular instance, the missing link is there was not a permit issued. And what you're identifying is the lack of an issuance of a permit. I don't know how that flies. But for those individuals who currently are having reviews done and the building commissioner, in exercising their authority on behalf of the town, says, I disagree with what you're trying to do, and you can appeal it, yes, they do have to get somebody that's going to be able to go and talk about the code and why is the building commissioner not applying the code correctly. That is the appeal process that I'm aware of. We may not like it.
So
but-
hypothetical is you're starting to build a house, you're my neighbor.
Yeah.
I call the building commissioner, I say, hey, he doesn't have any permits, and the building commissioner says he doesn't need any. So where's the appeal program?
Why would that ever happen?
Wait, stop right there.
I'm just saying.
The building commissioner would have to, first of all, investigate and see what's being done. Is under the code, does it require a permit?
Right.
Absolutely. That building commissioner or fire code official.
Should do a stop order.
They do a stop order. We actually adopted a certain chapter and section of the statute that allows for violations, and there's a certain amount of fines that can be addressed. And the individual can then appeal the fact that, hey, I got a violation for not filing for a building permit or a fire, whatever kind of permit. And then there's an appeal process, and a hearing would be held, and
Yep.
that is the process. So, but you're saying you want something put in place for the failure to obtain a permit, or, I'm,
As you know, with the Mary Lane property, there was not one permit issued from our town until just now when we had the demo.
but the town wouldn't issue a permit. The person seeking to have the demolition done had to seek the permits. And it's my understanding, they have filed or did whatever they needed to so that the demolition could begin.
Okay, I'm just not making myself clear.
Are you looking
Yeah.
for an electrical disconnection
Permit, yeah, like as you're,
Yeah.
because usually you're building, right, this is how I'm sitting
So you're
here.
looking for a permit to be disconnected?
Yeah,
Right, so,
Yeah.
so there were no disconnection permits, it was all
understand.
services were
Yeah.
shut off. And then also, it went far beyond abatement, it was interior walls and all that stuff,
but you
and
usually have to get.
So when you have working in the building department, part of the demo permit is that you need to supply X, Y, and Z. Water is disconnected, your sewers is disconnected, electrical is disconnected, gas is disconnected. And you need
Right.
to make sure all of those are submitted with the demo permit.
right.
Are you looking for a permit from an electrical contractor looking to disconnect those electricity at the site? Is that what you're looking for?
Exactly.
Earlier on, you're saying,
Earlier on,
so the problem
so
is they
people
did it
went in.
earlier on, now they're demolishing it.
Yeah.
None of this was done here, so that people in the know should have known, hey, they're disconnecting the electrical, that's a safety issue. The water's disconnected,
So-
all this, so they did it over here, the demolition wasn't done over here, right? Am I
January
making it-
24, they
So we
had
did it
no
here.
permits, and no one was checking to make sure the electrical was cut the right way, that, you know, and as you know, we also had all kinds of fire code violations and all that stuff, because there was not a proactive step to go in and make sure they had the proper permits. But that's all I'm saying, is that, you know, and so it appeared that the lawyers, KP Law, looked into the situation, and they said that we don't have an appeal process for something like that. And
Do we have a copy of KP Law's findings in that?
so I'm just wondering, because
Okay, so
they said
could you share
that you
that
would
with
need a
us?
bylaw, so
Yeah,
what I'm
that's not
doing
what
is
he said.
following up.
Sorry?
Yes.
We'll look
Okay.
at, we'll look.
Yeah,
into
I
it.
just don't know, so should I submit something for a bylaw, that's all.
I'm just asking, Nancy, you were talking about, you said there is an appeal process, so do we have an appeal process?
For this one
in town?
particular bylaw?
For fire code as well as building code violations, yes. The
So
state,
what
the
that-
town adopted this years ago, it's Mass General Laws, Chapter 148. The building official as well as the
Yeah.
fire chief and or his delegate have the ability to write code violations under the code that they follow.
But the violation was on, from my point of view, was at our local building commission level for not issuing permits, for allowing that activity
Well,
with no one going in and making sure it was done correctly.
That should go to the state inspector, whether she answered or not, that's gotta be the process, because there's no other entity in town that would have that authority
Yeah.
over the building commissioner.
Right.
Which
Nobody,
makes sense, knowledge.
for appealing a non-action, the
Yeah.
bylaw says appealing a fine.
Correct.
So that's
A
where
failure
a
to-
punitive
Right.
judgment has been taken, and you always have a right of appeal when you're being negatively impacted. And our bylaw sets up a process, but for a non-action,
There's nothing.
Yeah,
I'm not aware.
so hopefully it just won't ever happen again.
All right. Anything else, anyone?
Anybody up there?
All right. So under old business, we have nothing. Under new business, we have a discussion with regard to adopting Mass General Laws, Chapter 138-12D, which allows local licensing authorities to allow Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 12, on-premise wines and malt beverage license holders to trade in their license for a non-transferable Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter.
Excuse me.
In a second. I
Okay.
started here.
We're going backwards, okay.
Section 12, on-premises all alcoholic beverage license. You should have something in front of you that Nicole gave you. Basically, it says local boards must accept the new law prior to allowing Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 12, non-premise wines and malt beverage license holders to trade in their license for Mass General Laws, Chapter 138, Section 12, on-premise all alcoholic beverages licensed pursuant to Mass General Laws 138-12D, 138-12, on-premise wines and malt beverages, license holders requesting for a trade-in. And it says here, the all alcoholic beverage license must submit an application for a change of license category to the local board. Change of license category amendment requires ABC approval and must comply with the Liquor Control Act. And I highlighted something else where it says, including but not limited to advertisement of butters notification requirement and local board hearing. Local boards may charge a reasonable fee that shall not be excessive and may also establish additional requirements. I guess this literally comes down to, Nicole, if you want to explain it further, someone who holds a certain kind of license, if we accept this, would be allowed to transfer over in lieu of what they currently hold. Am I reading that right?
Yes, but they're not able to, once they upgrade it from a,
They're not able to go back.
they can go back
Oh.
to then sell it or transfer it to another person. But once it's an all alcohol, you can't transfer it at that level. So if Rollaway Lanes, I believe it's wine and malt, Stuart,
Right.
is that correct? Becomes an all alcohol, they can't sell the Rollaway Lanes with an all alcohol. They have to
It comes-
devote themselves back
Right.
down to wine and malt and then do the transfer.
Okay. I'm not sure if this is a good idea or not. That's the whole.
I think it only affects two current license holders,
Ooh,
Rollaway and Migos.
okay. And also,
do
the other
have
thing,
other
the other
licenses
thing
available.
is, that I know that there's a certain, it's per population. It will not increase the total number of licenses that we are allowed to authorize to be issued.
We currently have availabilities for both wine and malt and all alcohol restaurants on premises and off premises.
But we have not fully executed the all alcoholic, is my understanding. We haven't used it, the amount that we
Correct.
authorized.
Yes.
Okay.
There's some available.
Stuart, ideas, thoughts? None.
No, at least one I don't think would change, but.
Does it make a difference? I mean.
Yes, because they can
Well-
serve.
Well, I know it makes a difference, but I mean, why would we not want to do it, is the only question.
If you thought in the town there was enough accessibility to hard liquor, I guess that's why you would not do it.
By
In terms of the
all
town, we would get slightly more license fee.
I don't think the amount of money or amount of revenue that we would collect would be worth it. I'd be concerned, however, you have two establishments that have minors regularly in those establishments. And now you would have the ability, I know everyone has to be mindful and everyone has to set to the appropriate age, but I guess that would be my concern.
Yeah, I mean, on the positive side, it gives a business more flexibility.
Yeah.
I mean, they still have to apply,
Right.
so.
So this,
I mean, I trust the two current businesses that we have, but
if we were to pass that, that's just to allow them to apply. There's still a process.
Yeah.
correct.
And do we have to set the fee if we approve it at the same time, or can it
There's
be?
already a current fee established.
We already have fees.
We already have the fee established, okay.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with this, if somebody wants,
But it says
wants to
actually
make a
traded.
motion.
But just to be clear, this is basically trading,
Correct.
They
right?
would be
So
trading
once
up.
you,
They would be trading up.
I know, I'm saying, but they don't go through a whole process again. This is basically stepping this up.
They do have to follow the process of the whole ABCC application
Yeah.
again, like a new application. They have to apply with the ABCC, they have to apply with the local board, we have to notify
And there is a
butters.
hearing, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, but yes,
so the whole process starts all over.
again, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem with that.
So then someone should make a motion to approve it or disapprove it or whatever.
You know,
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we adopt Mass General Law, Chapter 138-12D,
yeah.
which allows LLAs and local licensing authorities to allow Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 12, on premises wine and malt beverage license holders to trade in their license for non-transferable Mass General Law, Chapter 138, Section 12, on premises all alcoholic beverage licenses, as outlined in the guidance document from the ABCC.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
So now do we have to notify them that we have the ability, Nicole, or it's up to them to pursue
It's
it?
kind of up to them,
Okay,
but I will.
all right. And now we'll go back to under the.
Do you want to do this one? I mean, you keep them buzzing around here.
Okay, discuss and approve a policy pertaining to campaign and or political signs on town property. I that'll have to be tabled again because I wrote to KP Law and asked for status and I did not get any appeals.
Okay.
So I need to have a motion to table that.
Move we table our discussion on a policy pertaining to campaign or political signs on town property.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, under the consent agenda, we have a special permit, Good Neighbor Day Movie Night, special permit number 2025-19 to be held on September 27th between 6:30 and 9:30 p.m. And special permit 2025-20 second annual recovery fair at Grenville Park on September 17th from 2 to 6.
Move to approve both said mentioned applications.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And then now the town manager report.
Let's see. We talked a little bit about the charter. Do you want to say that the charter committee is going to start their review again on September 15th? They have a meeting scheduled. A couple of things for the next meeting, perhaps for the board, in terms of appointments. We're currently on the capital planning committee missing a board representative.
From the select board?
From the select board.
Okay.
And so if we can put that on the agenda for next meeting. Also, currently on the infrastructure committee, you have 3 members now. Whether you still want to keep that or which just add something to the posting or,
We'll keep it.
Wouldn't there be a concern having 3 members present at the same time?
Yep.
Discussing business? So as the junior member of the board, I'll gladly step down to allow the senior members to continue on the infrastructure committee.
Oh, thanks.
do you remember, were you appointed as interested or as finance committee?
Finance.
Finance.
All right, so we need to go back to them and ask them to.
Thanks, Ken.
Okay.
Want to talk briefly about the hydrant replacements. Got off to a bad start the past few days. The replacements have gone fine. It's a matter of communicating to the public. We have it down now, although I still have to make an announcement for tomorrow. We'll be doing part of West Street, but again, the replacements are going fine. We're getting notifications out the night before so that people will be aware when the hydrants are being placed, the small section of their streets will lose the ability to have water.
So you're doing selective calling, Stuart, for that particular area? or-
Yes.
Okay. I just, I mean, I don't have town water, but I wondered how that,
Right, and today, it wasn't the hydrant replacement so much as it was that combined with a larger water problem in front of Big Y. So that created an issue. Anyway, we'll be calling the places where hydrants are being replaced the night before. So tomorrow is from 64 to 124 West Street, put that out. And the next day, there's 2 hydrants on 2 different streets, and that call's already lined up for
and how about the
Thursday.
area where the school campus is, has that hydrant been taken care of? Because I know
I don't-
school, I just wondered because. I know
Oh, the
school
one on
starts-
campus, that
Yes.
should have been done
Well,
last Thursday,
Okay.
On that, how many are you going to replace altogether?
34,
Okay, when would you anticipate all of those to be done? Roughly?
by mid-September.
Maybe it's okay.
Stuart, just for the folks who are watching, when the hydrant's replaced, then there's flushing that takes.
Yes, it's proven necessary, both today on Homestead and on Willow Street. If it stirs it up then we're running the water
See,
a couple of hours anyway. Today, Homestead was several hours.
Which is the most practical thing.
yeah, see, because they don't have the check valve on the hydrant, so you have to shut off the main, because there's no way of shutting off the hydrant. That's when you have to do that.
Correct, but after that change is made, then we're, at least so far on most of them, have flushed the system out the hydrant to
Yeah.
clear the color.
Oh, yeah,
Set up.
I have some, well, no.
Okay.
I have, you got ahead of me. I have some questions on, before. Okay, on the first page.
Oh, I haven't even gotten there yet.
He hasn't even
Okay.
gotten there yet.
I just want to.
It's been a busy day.
No, you're on page, I'm on the back page, and I have questions on the front page. I don't
Okay.
understand.
He hasn't.
I'm on
Done
page
that.
0 that you don't even have, so, but if, I can either keep going or you
Keep
can ask your
going.
questions.
We'll start with the
Right.
front of your page and let's.
For your next agenda as well, we had a new experience today of a request for a license for a fortune teller.
Ooh,
So we researched, and that actually falls on you as local licensing authority to issue a license for fortune teller. What we want to propose is we will create a form, have the applicant fill it out, and then they'll come to you for, actually has a full
Do we have
public.
to have a hearing?
You do,
That's what I
so,
thought.
yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
You already covered the asbestos enough? Do you
I think
agree?
so.
Okay. The work on the fire escape was completed past week. It passed its load test, so that was great.
Okay.
We did a mid-level repair that makes it accessible. There are more repairs that can be done. As part of that, Mike, the facilities director, has also painted the exterior doors to stop some of the weatherization that's occurred. Last week, we did a walkthrough of Town Hall with the fire chief, so the electrical engineer working on both the replacement system and the fire alarm system could do a final layout of panels and wiring and what needed to be expanded, where more outlets are needed. So that will turn into bid documents, and that should be going out to bid soon. Let's see. I'll just keep going. The East Main Street infrastructure project is going forward, should be ready for bid. That includes the sidewalks along East Main Street, the infrastructure under East Main Street, and then the paving using Chapter 90.
Okay.
All of that should be ready for bidding, and the engineer thinks that's a fall construction
Okay, I'll get
project.
my question. On this, what about the sewer and water lines?
Yes,
Yes, one.
that's part of the design and the bidding.
Okay.
They're gonna be replaced.
They're
That
gonna
will
be-
be replaced, and then the laterals will be installed as well? Just
To the property,
Hmm?
not
Yeah,
the,
yeah. Off the main.
there'll be, yes.
The
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay, that'll
The
be taken
stubs,
care of.
correct,
Okay.
thank you. Similarly, the Church Street sidewalk replacement project is ready for bidding, and that should also be a fall project.
Same question. Now, what about the laterals on those?
It's just the sidewalks.
Well, I know, but if you put the sidewalk in,
No, it's just the sidewalks. The,
okay. But what I'm saying, you're not gonna do the roads?
no,
All right, but, all right. So, it means that at some point in time, when the road is put in, then you will have to dig up the sidewalk to put your laterals in.
if there are parts of Church Street that have been done, and there are parts that haven't. I understand your point. I'll ask the engineer about giving the, well, we go to the curb stop, the town, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we would have to give the homeowner the opportunity.
Well, I don't know if they can work something out here to, I don't know, if they can put another line in there while they're doing this, I don't know.
Okay,
No, I just hate to see the sidewalk put in, and then you have to dig it up to put the line in when you're putting in new water line.
understood.
All right.
So I have a question. The water and sewer lines were done on most of Church Street through a project. Weren't they previously done?
Not bits and pieces.
Oh.
It's not, Church Street itself, I don't, and it's bits and pieces,
Okay.
not the whole.
Sorry to interrupt.
No. As you can see, the Church Street water tank project has mobilized. The temporary tanks have been delivered. The plan is They will be disinfected, and on Thursday, they will be inspected by DEP. And once that is done, the next step for next week is to do a fire flow test, which will also be overseen by DEP.
And then if and when the tanks get drained, appropriate calls will go out to that area of individuals, because it'll affect their water flow, correct?
I don't know that, but I will check.
I thought that was mentioned at.
Aren't there a couple of homes that are
There's
served out, the
5.
5 homes? So are you talking about just those 5 homes or the neighborhood?
I
yeah.
think the neighborhood, because it could
Right.
affect.
I think they've been, yes, I'm sure they'll be notified. They've been working with them. They're connecting. We had thought they were going to connect by hose, but they're actually putting in PVC pipe.
Yep.
So, let's see. We received the bids for the repair of the senior center. They're close to the funding available. They're being reviewed by the engineer. We also received bids for asphalt and chip sealing for future road projects, which is timely because we're working on a grant to reseal the roads
Question on that, sir.
in Grenville Park.
How are we doing on getting the pavement management plan?
We did, with Nicole's help, get that approved for Chapter 90 funding, and we've notified the contractor. I don't know when they're gonna do their work.
Okay,
yet.
well, the thing is, but that would segue into what this work is gonna be. And,
How?
For asphalt.
well, no,
and chip
I mean,
sealing.
that company, you look at the planning evaluation, the planning to do it. Now, there's another company that looks to be, okay, in that, then they will make specific recommendations as to what roads need to be done and when.
Yes, I mean, it's gonna fall on the town to decide, but yes. It will fall on the town to
Yeah,
interpret
they'll
that
make the
plan.
recommendations,
Yeah.
well, what they do is an evaluation, and then they say, here are the worst roads, and they list them, and
Right.
with that becomes a very important guide for the town as to what roads to be done.
Yes,
Okay, so what I'm saying is that we should have that in place before we start doing the paving. You haven't decided what the roads are, I mean, this is the document.
only, that is true.
Yeah,
All right,
okay.
most of, as we talked about 2 weeks ago, this is a very good year for Chapter 90. The state has increased its allotment by over 50%.
Yeah.
But we're holding off on spending it because we have at least one, if not 2 bridges that will need investment.
Yeah, I can understand that, but I guess my point is that this document is gonna be very, very helpful and useful, because it
Correct.
will outline the priorities based upon the condition of the roads. It's true, we make the final decision,
Yep.
but that's gonna be a very important guideline for us to make that decision.
Very good.
Okay.
You were talking about the flushable weights before, the treatment plant, very busy as that project has started. Already talked about the fire hydrants. Sort of talked about the parks restrooms. We're moving forward with perk tests to see if septic systems will work, as well as pumping the septic up to Church Street, which is the other alternative, so we'll be looking at that. Just again, want to thank everyone involved that, and the businesses that contributed to the fireworks. Great event and strong, stable base for next year.
Awesome.
And then finally, we were notified last week that the town received a Green Communities grant for the installation of electric mini-split heating and cooling at the senior center.
That's great.
That's
That'll
what
have to
we
be coordinated with the work that's going into fixing the walls and the foundation first, and then we'll put in that system.
All right.
I can make one comment. Stuart, another thing going down to the playground with my grandkids. Nothing but compliments from so many people that are using the playground down there. And the pavilion, that people were in there cooking up or, eating under the pavilion.
Yep, did you see the new picnic tables? They're beautiful. Under the pavilion, they.
Oh, yes.
Same person that built the pavilion put in 2 new large picnic tables. They're great.
Hand-built?
Hand-built.
No, I haven't seen those, I'll check that out. But everybody was delighted, parking, the whole deal.
Yep.
Stuart, I want to set up, I talked to Bill Lambier, I want to set up a joint meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission with the Select Board meeting. I don't know what our agendas look like for the next couple of meetings. I was thinking perhaps something in September, whether
Right.
they come to our meeting or we join them at theirs. Might be easier
Okay.
if they came to our meeting, so
Any particular topic you want to talk about?
the pool. So,
Cool, that's-
yes, Nicole?
They encourage all residents to sign up for alert,
Thank you.
Well, I was
code
gonna
red
mention that.
on the town website in the green scrolling top bar that says alert signups. You can just go there for people to get these robocalls for hydrant repairs, time events, things like that.
And Nicole, that code red system, that works on cell phones, it works on house phones,
Everything.
Emails.
emails,
Text messages.
text messages, and it's how you can get a variety of messages. It's critical when we have, God forbid, a natural disaster or a townwide emergency.
Correct.
It really pays benefits then, but the added is for the water hydrant replacement, they can circle the neighborhood they want the dedicated message to go to, and it goes only to them,
Wow.
not to the entire town. So you can get specific messaging for your location for a specific concern that you want to know about.
Awesome.
So the other thing too is they'll be sending out tax bills with the next tax bill. The select board could authorize a mailing to include some messages such as this, because it goes to the property owners also, not just the residents. Property owners have very high responsibility of letting their patrons and renters know of what their responsibilities are. So not only with the flush wipes, but for also the robocalls. And interesting, I can't tell you how many times people even come and say, do you know who so-and-so is? And we do research to find out who the property owner is, and then if we can get a contact number for some of the town departments, because that's where there's a disconnect, so to speak. You know, we don't have the ability to make those calls appropriately, but, so, all right. So let's think about, I'll call Mr. Ibier and see whether or not they'd be willing to come to our meeting, because it might, I know they sometimes have a very heavy agenda. They meet on the first Monday, and we'll see
Yeah,
what we
in
can set up in September.
In the September, it'll be the second Monday
Right,
because of Labor Day.
but maybe they'd come to our meeting instead, so. If there's nothing else, a motion to adjourn at 8:35?
Move we adjourn?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you.